Welcome to Childcare Conversations with Kate and Carrie.
All right, so this week we are so excited because we have a special guest, and we're going to talk about some things that one might not be terribly comfortable. So we're going to have one of those difficult conversations that you might have to have with parents, and we're going to talk about what it's like to work with family. And if this is your first time joining us, you may not know that Carrie and I are cousins, and we have actually managed to somehow work together for over the last 20 years. We were raised by entrepreneurs. We are raising the next generation. So we're really excited about all of that. And Christian, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up in early child care leadership?
So my name is Christian Muraira. I'm the director of Early Child Care Center of San Benito. I've been doing this for about 10 years. I'm 25 now. And when I first started, my mom actually got a daycare in Harlingen. And I was a volunteer with the after school class. We had a brand new teacher and she was having difficulty controlling the class. So then they put me in there to try to like talk to the boys because they were the ones who were like more, I guess, out there. And ever since then, I was an after school teacher for a couple of years. I started helping out the director in the front, watching all the classes, learning all the minimum standards. And then when we got San Benito, my mom pretty much just told me that you're always there. I think I'm gonna try you out as a director. And it's been a little over a year now, and honestly, it's been a lot of fun. A little stressful at times, but for the most part, I really enjoyed it. Watching the kids grow, I think it's a lot different than being in the class, but it's really rewarding.
So I want to rewind just a little bit to say how we met Christian. So we were presenting at a conference down in his part of the state, and we were just doing our normal spiel, and Christian was like, I listen to your podcast. Which was the first time that it ever happened in the middle of one of our trainings. And so we were like, we've got to keep in contact with him and get to know him. And I just love the fact that you're not afraid to, even in a training setting, say what you need to say to get additional information. Like, you are an information sponge. You're out there trying to get new information and make your program better. And I just think that's great.
No, well, that first year I was freaking out because I guess as the director by myself, I was like, okay, what am I gonna do? I know what to do to like keep my center open, but how am I gonna make it better? So I was looking for everything, and that's when I stumbled upon the podcast, and I was listening to it for like a month straight, every morning, every time I would go somewhere, and it really helped.
Well, good. I'm glad we could help a little bit. So if you're listening to the podcast and you're like, hey, I might have a story, reach out to us. We'd love to have you on and make you feel a little bit at home and welcome, because we all know more than we think we do. And it's what's called unconscious competence. So you know how to do stuff because you've been around the school and the culture that your mom helped to create for 10 years. It's a matter of how do you convey that to your new hires and to your parents and stuff like that. You've got unconscious competence. It was very clear that you knew what you were doing that first day we met you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think over this last year, I started like growing more confidence in it. Because in the beginning, I was like, no, I don't know. I was calling her for everything, but now it's more like, okay, let's see what's happening and just keep moving forward.
Well, I've got a question.
Okay.
You ready?
What is the question?
So you mentioned that you actually started as a school age instructor, school age teacher. I can relate to that. That's actually my favorite place. I won't say it's where I started, but it's definitely my favorite place. How did the kids respond to you, and how did the parents respond to you?
At first, all the boys would just talk to me about video games. They were super shocked that I knew like their favorite game. They would mention something like Pokemon, and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, I used to play that was little, they would freak out. Um, so it was like an instant connection with all the boys. With the girls, it was a little different. They they would want to cheese me out, like or gossip with me a little bit. But I would always try to put like a line between it. But for the most part, it was like I'm kind of like their friend. Especially when I was volunteering, I wasn't really too much into like leading the class, but I was just kind of like talking to them. And then for a while with the parents, it was more they enjoyed it because their kids enjoy coming more. Um, it was a little difficult transitioning from like volunteer to teacher because now I have to talk to the parents more, tell them, okay, this is what's going on. Um, and they were a little more like, okay, you're also a child. But
So
it
how old
it
were
slowly
you
kept
when
going.
you went from assistant to teacher?
So as soon as I turned 18, pretty much,
Okay. So as soon
I
as
started in the class.
ratio said you could be in charge.
Mhm. It it happened so that when I was already 17, I was pretty much like leading the class. All the kids were just always staring at me, so it was just I was already in with that connection with that same class, and it just came naturally.
So you found yourself here because your mom had the program. Do you think this is a field you would have selected otherwise? Had you already thought about going into teaching, or when you were not 15, what did you think you were going to do? Like Carrie tells a story that she was going to have childcare since she was 3.
Mm. So originally, I was planning to be like an accountant. Still am, still going to school, hopefully. Um, but my mom would give training since I was a child, and I'm not gonna lie, it never really interested me. Um, and then once I was actually in the class, it was more, this is not super bad. I always thought that I was gonna have an issue like talking to the kids, but there's just there's so much easier to talk to, I think. We talk about their day and stuff, and they can go on and on. And at first I was like, man, I cannot, like, if I have 20 people telling me about their day, because I'm pretty antisocial, like, but when it worked with them, I could talk all day. And I'm like, oh really? And then I talk to them about a game, and I just love it.
So, okay, you obviously have a head for numbers or an interest in numbers, because otherwise you wouldn't have, as an elementary and middle school kid, been like, I would like to be an accountant. So do you get to do much of that in your current role?
Mm, a little bit. It's more, at first we would just do like the payroll and stuff, but now we actually have a real accountant. Um, but for the most part, I actually would just wanted to be an accountant because I heard they pay well. Um, and I can't say I really love numbers. I think I ended up liking being in the class more than I do the office work.
Okay. Okay. Well, then I don't know if you get to be an accountant, because you're going to have to deal with the numbers all the time and tell people when they're overspending in a category.
Well, I'm good at telling my mom that. Don't worry.
So, what is the weirdest thing that a parent ever said to you when they were like, "Wait, you're a guy working in the classroom"? What's the weirdest thing a parent ever said to you about that?
So it was actually I was giving a tour of our Harlingen facility, and I had a baby coming in, and it was going great. Like the mom was laughing, we were talking, we were showing her everything. I was setting all the rules, and then like right in the middle, she just asked me like, "So, but you're not the one who's gonna change her, right?" And I was like, "No," but at first it didn't hit me that it was like she was uneasy with it. I was like, "No, I'm usually in the after school or in the office." And then it later hit me like, oh, she's uncomfortable with like the idea of me changing her babies. It kind of made me feel weird. It was more like she didn't trust me like that, and it to me, I was like, well, why would you bring your kiddo somewhere where you don't have faith that something's gonna happen to them? So it made me feel like weird about it, kind of ugly, but my staff was really supportive, and they were like, no, I mean, I had been around kids for years when it happened, and it I think I've gone past that.
What would you tell another male teacher? So again,
Somebody
we
thinking
had,
about entering the industry who is a
yeah.
guy.
I mean, honestly, I think from what I've seen and what I've talked to other like schools, I think having a guy is a lot, how do I put it? It's kind of necessary in some sense because the kids connect differently. I wouldn't tell them to get discouraged. I mean, yes, you have some parents that will make you feel a little weird. But for the most part, like once they get to know you, they will trust you. I have a lot of my parents that they come from like a really Mexican background, so they were really like worried about that. Um, and now sometimes like I'm closing the center and the kiddo's still here and it's just me. And I'm telling you like man, it's I I just feel like they'll gain the trust. And it's a slow process, but it does get there.
I mean, the research absolutely supports that it's important to have men in childcare because where the type of play that guys naturally do with kids is different than the type of play girls, female staff naturally do with kids. There's more likely to be some rough and tumble, some competition, those kinds of things. And kids need to learn that, just like they need that, abuelita who might be in the infant room rocking the babies, like they need those snugglers, but they also need somebody who's willing to, set up a competition for no good reason, just because they think it might be fun. And there's kids who don't know how to be around guys because they're in an all-female household.
Hmm. That did happen a lot to me actually. I had about 8 families that there was no dad or like any brothers, and the kids were just always around me. Like even when we weren't doing anything, we're just sitting at a table. They would want to sit right next to me, and it had to be next to me. And I it does show that they're missing that connection a little bit. They're looking for it.
Yeah, they need to learn how to be around guys and what guys are like. Because otherwise you
Mhm.
only know what's, maybe their parents watch Fast and Furious and that's all they know.
and you get to be an awesome role model. So I have a question that may come across as more of a challenge, and you can take it that way. How many men have you hired into your program at San Benito?
So in San Benito, actually none. I couldn't find any.
Oh, okay.
I was looking. In Harlingen though, we had one that was a cook, and then another was that was actually in the after school class. And the kids, even with the cooks, like they're always looking for them. Of course, their name is always gonna be like Papa or something, but for the most part, like they do look for them. And if I can find one for San Benito, if anybody's listening, I would love you as my after school teacher.
We
Absolutely.
can help you with
Absolutely.
writing ads to get you some guys. We'll troubleshoot after we're done with the podcast, give you some ideas.
That sounds good.
Okay.
So you said that your mom started one of your locations, and you guys have 2 locations or 3 locations?
We have 3. So we have Brownsville, San Benito, and Harlingen.
All right. And so what's it like working for your mom?
Horrible. No, I'm just playing.
I was like, is she in the room? Did I just call you out?
No, she's actually covering for me in the office. So, I mean, there's times, I'm not gonna lie, that there is times that we all fight because we've seen each other for like weeks straight, getting everything ready, and we're already tired. Then we have to go home and then see each other. Like there was times, but honestly, I don't think that there's anything better because, like for example, one time at like 12 at midnight, a pipe just burst at one of our centers, and it was all my family that was there, and it really is like those moments where like, man, right now I don't really like you because I've seen you all week, but there's nobody I'd rather be here with.
I love that story. And I think that's a true sentiment for families that somehow have to figure out how to work together and play together. So, um, if you were talking to somebody else, you were at a conference and you were with somebody else at your table who happened to hear that you worked with your relatives, what might be some advice you would give them? Or if they go, oh, I could never work with my mom or any other relatives, what would you say to them?
Like just move out, because that's what I did and everything fixed. No, honestly, I would say to set boundaries. Like there's work boundaries and then there's life boundaries. Um, when we first started the center, it was a little rough because pretty much your whole life becomes work. But now that we're more stable, it's okay, we're gonna work, even though sometimes like work kind of like goes into life. When we have those moments where like, hey, we're just gonna focus outside of work, it did help out a lot.
Making it clear which hat you're wearing. Are you wearing the we work together hat, or are you wearing the family hat?
Yes, especially, I mean, especially with my mom, because she was my boss too. So sometimes I'd tell her, okay, like I know you're my boss, but I need you to be my mom right now. And I would just vent to her like everything that would happen. Because you know how it is running a center. Everything that's gonna happen happens in a short period of time. And
Yep.
then you'll have the next month that's like super calm, yeah, everything's happy. But that 1 week is real stressful. So I would vent to her and then be like, okay, now I need you to be my boss. Like, let's go. And I need your coaching pretty much.
That is excellent. Like being able to communicate that I need this right now, and then let's go back into problem solving mode. Like, see, I told you, you already knew lots of stuff.
Well, I think it came from trial and error, because I would just vent and then she would go straight into like trying to fix it. And I'd be like, you're not hearing me vent. But eventually when I told her, I was like, can I just vent and then you can help me? It fixed a lot of like the tension on my end, I guess.
I've had conversations like that.
Yep, we both have.
I was like, that sounds almost identical to a conversation I had with my youngest.
It's because it does happen. I mean, my mom has been doing this for so long that she instantly switches like how to like we're gonna fix this. And she's great at it. There was some times where I was like, okay, I don't know how to do this. I need to like let it all out. So then now I can learn how to fix it.
So where do you want to go next, Christian? Yeah, I mean, you said something about an accountant. Or do you want to be more like the CFO and have a couple more centers? What's on the long-term plan for y'all?
Honestly, we want to get NACE accredited in our Brownsville and Harlingen centers. So I
Awesome.
think really that's the main focus. We're kind of here in San Benito going to TRS first, because we opened a little over a year ago, and so they were pushing everything back. So we're just trying to do TRS here, and our other centers we're really focused on getting NACE accredited.
Yeah, start with the accreditation that pays you, which is the TRS, and then go to the accreditation that you have to pay for, which is the NACE.
Yes, and so pretty much our plan is to do one center, have a couple extra staff to come over to our other centers, help train, get everything ready, and then just keep going to our third.
So just rolling it forward.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then that means in 2 years, you'll be ready to open a fourth center.
Maybe. But honestly, it depends. I'm waiting to see how everything goes, because we have had a plan for a very long time that we want to open a Montessori school. So maybe that would be the fourth, but we want to do the NACE first, like get into that storm, get out of it, and then put ourselves back in another one. And it'll probably be the Montessori, because we already know the school. We're just waiting for my mom's friend to retire.
Oh,
Wonderful. So, just grow it until you feel like this is the perfect size for your team, and then maybe grow one size bigger.
Maybe.
You got to have a little bit of stretch, a little bit of outside of your comfort zone, so that you continue to grow and develop.
I agree with you. I mean, I think every center we've gotten has been like, can we do it? And then it's like, it's okay. And I mean, I'm hoping with NACE, because right now it's like, okay, we want a little extra staff to train. And we're learning so much that even here in San Benito, I know it's not our focus, but we're already starting to implement like small things. And it's been going really well. So hopefully with the Montessori school, I can get my sister to run it, and I wouldn't have to worry.
That's it. Just share the joy with other people.
Hmm.
So do you have a word of advice to somebody who might be listening who went from being a peer, because you went from being a teacher to now you were in charge? How did that work out?
I think the most important one is setting boundaries, because it was a lot of like, I used to be talking with the teachers all the time, and then as soon as I was in the office, they treated me a little differently, not in a bad way, but it was kind of like, you were one of us, and like what happened now, they would complain about the class, and I had to look at it like, well, maybe we can fix it here, and they would look at me like, wait, you like what happened here? Um, but it was really just that setting the boundaries of like, okay, now I'm here to help you. I'm here to encourage you, because I mean, there's times where the teachers get a little overwhelmed and they don't want to hear like, let's do something. So it was learning all of that, and I think for the most part, it really is just communicating with the teachers. For me, when I first got into the office, I had a lot of staff that were like 20 years older than me. So they've been doing this longer than I was alive. And at first, it was a little intimidating to go into their class and try to redirect them. But I mean, my mom's been giving trainings since I was like 3. And so I was there learning from her, go over the trainings, going to help her at the trainings. So I would tell them like, look, I was literally trained to do this, like just raise. That's all I did, just get raised in trainings. So I'm I'm not telling you because I want to like be mean or telling you you're doing it wrong. I'm just telling you because this is going to be a way to make it easier for you in the long run.
This sounds very familiar to me. Because I became a director for the first time at 23. So this sounds very familiar.
And it's weird. It was really weird for me, like talking to older people that are like, they would that their first they would give me an eye, like, again, you're too young to be telling me how to do this.
I
But
think anytime you're younger than they are, they feel that way. It doesn't matter how long you've been a director. If you're still
mhm,
significantly younger than they are, there's still some of that.
it's weird.
You're
It's
not
like
the
a little
boss.
tension. But I mean, I would just explain it to them, and then I would tell them why we do certain things. Um, and eventually, it slowly gets there, and it's like, okay, like he's really trying to help me. I'm gonna try it for a little bit, and then once they see it's easier, they'll just continue to do it.
Well, I get inspired every time I listen to you tell stories about how you're there for your staff and you've been there for the kids at your programs. And I know I'm excited to see what you end up doing, not only with your NACI accreditation, but just finding those guys in South Texas and bringing them into being role models. And so sometimes with that situation, it might be all about what you call their roles. And so maybe they're after school role models instead of after school teachers
Or after school
It's a good
coaches.
idea.
or after school coaches.
Actually, I like the coach idea because I don't know how many times I've been called coach already. And I was just in class, and then they would run up, coach, coach. And I'm like, wait.
Yep. And it's something people feel more comfortable with in my experience of the Hispanic community, which is not as much as your experience of the Hispanic community, but that every T-ball, every soccer team has like 7 different dads that are there that are the coaches, even if they're not the coaches. And so it's a role that they're more comfortable with. They've seen their dad or their tío or somebody do that role. And so if I could do that, I could be a coach for the after schoolers.
It's a good
That
idea because my dad was one of those coaches. So I think I do definitely want to get more males, mainly because here in San Benito, I have a lot of boys. And if I could be in the class with them all day, I really would. Because I know they get really hyper for like some of the ladies and stuff, but I love it. Like I love my classroom super loud. Um, and it really is just that, like if I could get a male for them, just so they have that connection all day, I
Maybe
think it
you
would really
could
help
get maybe
out.
you could start with also finding a guy that wants to be a floater. Like he could be full time and he could start like at lunch and
Mhm.
help with lunches and float in the afternoons during nap time and have the schoolers. And then that way the parents and teachers get comfortable with it. Carrie had, an infant a man in one of her infant rooms who
Three
was
of
a
my infant
medic.
rooms. I've had
Mhm.
men in all of my infant rooms at various times.
So
Infant rooms, toddler rooms. That's not usually where they start, because the parents had to get familiar and comfortable with that person, and then they move into the infant room.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it really is the same thing. It's just the parents learning to trust them, and I mean, once they get to know them, it really does come naturally.
Yeah.
But I would never be in the infant room because I'm afraid to hold the babies.
Hey, it's whatever age group you're most comfortable with, that's the classroom you sub in. Don't sub in the classrooms you're not super comfortable with. I don't go into 4-year-old classrooms unless I absolutely have to.
Me too.
I
4-year-olds.
don't want to go to the toddlers. Don't give me those 2-year-olds.
So
I
everybody has
kind of like them
Yeah.
because they're all like they just wave at me because I take their food. I little things, so they just as soon as they see me, they all run and sit down. Sometimes I'm like, I'm just your teacher's going to the restroom. Like I don't have any food.
Yeah,
All right.
well,
So Christian, what conferences do you have planned this year? Do you have anything you're going to that you're excited about?
I just went to some. I went to one in Dallas not too long ago. After that, I don't think I have any planned for myself. I know our other directors are kind of alternating, so we don't all go at the same time. But I
Well,
know our
so the SICA conference, the Southeast, it's part of NACI. It's the regional NACI conference, is actually going to be in Houston in March. So if you guys are working towards your NACI accreditation, that might be something to plan, to try to budget, to get some of your staff to go to, where you get a chance to talk to other programs that are really focused on that NACI accreditation.
yes, I mean, for
Especially since
anything
it's in
we're really
Houston.
going. Yeah, it's close.
It was in Atlanta last year, but Houston.
Yeah.
it's easier to get to.
Yes, no, we've also been doing like coaching with Trina, and it's really helped a lot. Like she knows so much, so it's really helped learn how to talk to our staff more. So I
She
think
is
for the most
very
part,
good at that, at helping the kids take a breath and
Mhm.
helping the teachers help the kids take a breath, without a
I,
doubt.
I I have all of them breathing now. Like even my teachers, like even my parents. I had a parent that was pretty burnt out. She was struggling a lot with her little boy, trying to get him to talk. And I told her, I was like, it's okay. Like he's gonna talk because he's already making like the connections. He's trying to talk. Like just breathe, go slowly, and eventually he's gonna get there. And I'm slowly trying to get all of them to breathe so that I don't have any parents like have issues or anything like that. Like when accidents happen, I just tell them like, let's all breathe, and it's slowly working.
Yep. Well, she's a great resource. That's why we've had her on the podcast twice. We think she's a great resource for folks, and we love training with her.
She's really good, really good.
All right. Well, Christian, I'm sure we will see you around at conferences around the state over the course of the next year. If you ever need anything, feel free to reach out to us. Carrie, do you want to wrap us up?
So if you got anything from the show, make sure to share it. And we'd love it if you go into your podcasting app and comment on the show. Also, if you have any topics you would like us to cover, send us an email and we'll be happy to add it to our list.
Thank you for listening to Childcare Conversations with Kate and Carrie. Want to learn more? Check out our website at texasdirector.org. And if you've learned anything today, leave us a comment below and share the show.